Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and my distinguished guest today is Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Yeah, hello there, Sasha. Glad to be here as always. So far, I'm your only distinguished guest today.
You are, yeah, but not only one, but also
Hopefully we have more coming
together. Jonathan, I would like to unleash on you an information that it's getting more and more difficult to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there is, and I've heard it now more than from one source, which I trust, but from a few sources. It's something about exchanging nice messages between Trump and or his people, and Putin and or his people. And both parties are neither denying, nor confirms these talks. Never mind the nature of what's been discussed. However, by actions of Russians in the last few days, something didn't work out of what Russia expected. Something definitely.
Their counteroffensive against the counteroffensive against the Kursk salient is specifically what you are talking about. I've seen reports that the casualty rates among the Russians and their North Korean allies in their counteroffensive has been much higher than expected. The North Koreans are deserting in significant numbers. They are not performing well at all. And from the video that Ivan showed us,
right,
that is a very telling video. And what severely wounded North Korean prisoner had to say is very revealing. And what it is showing is that the immediate costs to Russia are increasing even beyond what they were before. Rather than their casualty rates going down and they're achieving significant advances, their costs are even more exorbitant in terms of men and material than before. So now the cost, now Putin has to make his own cost-benefit analysis. In putting it capitalist terms, he has to. He has to do a real cost-benefit analysis. Is the cost to Putin and Russia for continuing the war worth halting the war? Is it less than halting the war and going back to square one and say declaring victory and going home and repairing the damage that has been not only to Putin and the Russian demographic population, which is significant? Ripple effects are going to be felt in the years to come. But is it worth more to Putin to continue the war, or to simply cut his losses, make a deal, put the best face on it, and retreat and consolidate his power and try to recover? And he has to hope that his remaining lifespan is long enough that he might actually have another chance, which I doubt, because the way that Trump and his allies and his political support is going, if Trump and his second administration in term succeeds in carrying out his promises to the American people, as well as by extension to the allies in the world as well, then Putin will have no more time after this for a second try. So, but his losses could go up to such an extent that he will be crippled for years to come. Even if he has virtually no chance of taking over Ukraine, NATO and the NATO allies will not allow it. They see that their best interest lies in stopping Putin now.
Absolutely. Jonathan, one of the best investment strategies are cut your losses and let your winners run.
Yes.
Now, this
A good
Ukrainian,
gambling rule.
for Putin, Ukraine, it doesn't look like a winner that you run and run and run. It looks more and more.
He's been letting his losses run.
So he allows his losses run, and even in investment, like a great Peter O'Neill, great investor, died a few months ago. He always suggested when you got position and you lost 7% from where you entered position, don't think. First you sell immediately. And then you think, what a great company, or it could have been reversed, or it could have been better, it's so on and on and on. Because in a right situation, you may buy it back at much lower price, or maybe not much lower, but at lower price or so on. But first you have to cut your losses, because your losses can go to 7% and 10% and 15 and 20 and 25 and so on. So you have to immediately stop bleeding. You do that, and then you analyze what's happened, why the stock went down from where I bought it, and so on. So Putin must at some point cut his bloody losses, because if he is now approaching Korea for not only men, there are about 12,000 Koreans already there, and he's getting the ammunition and weapons from North Korea. Who could think that the greatest, second greatest power in the world would get its weaponry from North Korea? Who could imagine that? Anyway?
Ukraine is getting better allies and better options than Russia, because South Korea is seriously considering dipping into its really large reserves of weaponry and ammunition to send to Ukraine to enable to sustain its forces. And interestingly enough, one of my colleagues commented on one of our recent podcasts and commented that the trade-off for Ukraine in the current conflict has to be between close air support and deep strikes. Now, the logic between the two is very clear. For deep strikes, what deep strikes do is they enable you to degrade an opponent's capability to sustain an offensive over the long term by degrading his supplies, his reinforcements, his ability to reinforce that. But it takes longer to have a visible effect on the battlefield. Deep strikes are more decisive, but they take longer. Close air support is the firepower you use to directly destroy an enemy advance. That has immediate benefit, but it does not affect it. It has immediate benefit in the short term, but it does not affect an opponent's capability to sustain the conflict over the long term. So there's a trade-off between the two. Both are necessary, but there has to be a balance and to enable both kinds of firepower to work together. So right now, it's a very interesting situation. Again, I previously suggested, and our colleague Ivan had a qualified suggestion on that. For example, delivering 20 millimeter Vulcan anti-aircraft weapons to Ukraine from our stockpile, which could be used in a ground attack mode. You take a 20 millimeter weapon with a several thousand rounds per minute firing rate, and you give it sufficient 20 millimeter ammunition. You put those things up along the front lines in a manner similar to a World War I trench system. And World War I, with interlocking fields of fire from machine guns, those things, as it was said, harvested men like wheat. But you do that with a 20 millimeter Vulcan system in ground attack mode. In there, that would be, like as I said before, that would turn the meat grinder into a Cuisinart.
Look, something that worked over 100 years ago, it still can work effectively.
We would simply be upgrading the weapons used to execute the same strategy. And the same concept would be just that much more effective. It would be just, it would be more a system that's more on steroids than anything else. It's been upgunned for the 21st century. So the Ukrainians have the upper hand in terms of the mathematics, and and they also now have the upper hand much to their surprise, politically, because the incoming Trump administration is unified. It has a unified base of support behind it. They have the advantage of saying we won the popular vote, which is not necessary in order to be elected president. But not only do we win the Electoral College, which is what the American system is based on, but as an added bonus for credibility's sake, we won the popular vote as well, which is theoretically what a democracy is based on. But you forget the United States is not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic, a nation which is different from other democracies. It was deliberately designed to be different.
Yes, and it's a unique system, unlike anywhere in the world.
Correct.
And according to this last election result, Trump got absolute power by American people granted to him. So now he has to deliver
Correct.
on most of his promises, some of his promises, whatever he has a free hand to do anything what he wants, how he wants, and so on.
Based on the information we have received, what President Trump has to deliver on in his second term are the issues which polls and others have told him are most important to the American people. Those issues are illegal immigration. He has to control that and get that under control, and that's why the announcement of the largest deportation operation in American history. That is absolutely necessary. There has to be visible results in that regard, and as well as taming inflation. Way you tame inflation, his way, one of his tools to do that will be the greater production of energy. If you produce greater energy, you bring down costs. Those costs have a further effect upon food and other materials upon which energy depends. So that if you see visible results in that occurring at least within the next 2 years, then that is going to bode well for his ability to sustain and continue those things. And also you have other, for example, that establishment of the Department of Government Efficiency under Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Now that is going to be a very interesting thing to watch. In principle, they have the right idea. Keep in mind that the interest on our national debt, which is larger than the interest itself is larger than our current defense budget. Now, that's a real serious signal. It's about something like $898 billion. So what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy must be able to accomplish by going through and cutting all the identifiable waste, recommending all the areas of waste and overspending that need to be identified and cut. The objective there, they must generate an annual surplus, not a deficit, an actual surplus that is greater than the interest on the federal debt. So in shorthand, basically they have to generate surpluses of at least $1 trillion a year, preferably larger. They must generate as large a surplus as possible each year in order to pay down the interest on the federal, because when you pay down the interest on the federal debt, it's like paying larger than the minimum payment on a credit card. If when you have a credit card that is maxed out, you better be paying it down faster than the minimum required payment. Otherwise, you're just treading water. You're just maintaining the situation as it is rather than making it better. So if they can succeed in identifying enough waste to generate surpluses of preferably 2 or 3 trillion a year, that starts paying down the national debt. That reduces the amount of interest on the federal debt that needs to be repaid. And the entire cycle of debt goes into reverse. It goes into reverse. There are other means, which I would hesitate to mention even in this forum, which could be used to accelerate that. But right for the moment, let us see how Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy managed to identify the sources of waste, and if they can in the short term initiate cuts or create budget surpluses of at least $1 trillion and preferably more, then we will know that that is working as well. And that will enable President Trump and the Republicans to maintain power not only for this coming term, but for Trump's successor, whoever that might be.
Jonathan, I can suggest something what you probably decided not to elaborate on, is the fact that even if you simply lower interest rates, if you're going on prime from what is now say 4.5 or a quarter, if you will go down to 2.5, 2.25, and ultimately if you will go to 0.5 like it was 4 years ago around pandemic time,
that would be a mistake.
That's a whole. So
interest rates. The point is, you're not to try to lower interest rates per se.
Yeah.
The idea is to lower spending, cut down that, create a stronger basis for the U.S. dollar.
Inflation will go down,
and if you do, in addition to doing that, that cutting of spending also gives you more flexibility to do what President Trump wants to do, which is to cut taxes, maintain the tax cuts in order to stimulate economic growth. If you do that, if you cut taxes and cut spending, something which has rarely been done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to cut taxes and cut spending. If you do that, if you cut spending in sufficient amounts to lower the debt and create a stronger perceived basis for economic power, then what they are hoping for, they are saying this will become a new golden age. Well, it will become a golden age if the Republicans have the discipline to cut the spending sufficiently and eliminate waste and be serious about it, because there are one of the episodes on the Fox network started listing all of the projects that are absolute, to the casual observer, are an absolute waste of money. And then you could spend an entire program just listing all of the ridiculous things that we have spent money on over the years, and for which we have no discernible purpose anymore. Now, I mentioned to one of my colleagues, one of the things that they should take a serious look at is that we have been using 40% of our corn crop to make ethanol, which we put into our gas tanks. Now, that was initiated by former President George W. Bush. That kind of halfway made sense back then, because we were more dependent upon foreign oil imports back in the 2000s than we are now.
That's also used in Brazil for their cars.
Yeah, and it's said that they are using it more efficiently, but using 40% of our corn crop to make ethanol, which we don't really need, because now we're going to be able to produce enough oil to meet our own needs easily without using food for fuel. Use food to make food. It's like, use our corn crop to make, if you free up 40% of the corn crop to do that, and then RFK Jr., he has an obvious target. We also use 7% of our corn crop to make something called high fructose corn syrup. Has no nutritional value. It is a chemically produced flavor enhancer, which makes moves more appetizing. And our food, they add high fructose corn syrup to just about everything. And it has been shown by a number of medical experts that high fructose corn syrup actually has a negative health effect on Americans, and especially children. That is something that RFK Jr. would target and get in. He could very logically and credibly recommend stop using 7% of our corn crop to make high fructose corn syrup, get it out of our food, and we can then, and because other countries will not accept our food imports that have high fructose corn syrup in it, that will expand our opportunities to export food. So with 47% of our corn crop freed up to make either more corn or other types of food, which would be palatable and edible by foreign countries as well as ourselves, that also produces a greater supply of food. If you produce a greater supply of food, what happens to the price? It goes down.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that Elon Musk came up with an initiative to cut subsidies for electric cars in the United States. What's interesting that his main product is electric car Tesla. But
Yeah.
he doesn't want subsidies because
No.
subsidies cover not only his cars, but GM, Ford, and many other producers. So why subsidies? Let them compete on their own. And in that perspective, Tesla is much more competitive, at least at this time, than many other.
For those people that want them and can think that they can sustain them, fine, let them buy them if they wish. But you're right, don't subsidize them. Let the market determine that. And also, we also, it's a not very well known fact, we subsidize, Congress has been subsidizing the sugar industry with billions of dollars of payments for decades. Stop doing that. Remove the sugar subsidy, let sugar compete on its own, because when you remove high fructose corn syrup, guess what? When you remove high fructose corn syrup, what are companies going to turn to if they want to enhance the flavor of their products? They're going to turn to sugar. But the sugar, at least your body can use sugar, especially in reasonable amounts. So sugar would be a much, and by removing the subsidy from sugar, you save several $billion a year, but you let the market and the American people determine, okay, how much sugar do we really need? Or do we simply divert all that sugar into the production of candy, which we export to foreign countries?
Now, speaking about situation in Ukraine, so many people expect that Trump will follow up on his promise to end the war, if not 24 hours, but anytime soon. Let's put it this way. Okay. But people are forgetting about one little thing, that he is not going to be inaugurated before January 20th. So how he can create a peace in Ukraine over the head of Joe Biden, who is still a president, I think it's technically is not really workable situation. Number two, people are afraid that once Trump is president, he will say, okay, Ukraine, there's no more help for you, and just do whatever you want. This is absolutely ridiculous scenario because he doesn't want to appear as Biden in Afghanistan when he just left everything and it was complete calamity, which probably cost him presidency just as well. But Trump is definitely not going to start with his presidency with a disaster.
No.
However, to balance that as possible peace negotiations and continue to support Ukraine, and this peace negotiation is not a done deal yet, and I'll go to why I think so, that there is now discussed a scheme that if U.S. directly, as Biden did, is okay, they send weapons and financial resources to Ukraine, and it's not given even as a loan, it's just given over there. And I think it will be counterproductive for what Trump is trying to do with his team. So most likely, even if it's a lend lease is also you pump in the money and whatever you will get back and when you will get back and if you will get back, it's very questionable. So the most practical scenario would be, and it's what's being discussed right now, that the powers of NATO, Western Europe, either they will unite under the additional umbrella or they will act the same way as they do now. They will purchase U.S. Weapons, send them to Ukraine on whatever the deals they want to arrange with Ukraine, and so therefore U.S. weapon producers, they will be paid instantly by European countries, so U.S. financially will be taken care of, and then there is no impediment for Trump to continue be in a game. Now, continue my thoughts about what's happened between him and Putin. There was interview with the Patrushev, who is the second man in Russia after Putin. And Patrushev was very agitated. And what he did, first of all, a few days before that, Russians published a semi-nude picture of Melania Trump. Second of all, he was very pushy against Trump in that interview, implying that, look, we made you a president of the United States. Now it's a payback time. Now you have to deliver whatever was promised and discussed and all that stuff. And I think that what created a major kind of a point, a very sore point in upcoming relationship with Putin, because look, there are, Musk was several times in Russia in the last several months. It's been revealed that Trump has conversations in the last several months. But you see, what is interpretation and who interprets what, it makes a lot of difference. So Trump could imply that, sure, we will help you, we will support you, or so on. And Russians could interpret that, look, we demand that you will support and cooperate with us, because as you saw the picture of your wife, we have many more pictures that we can relieve. But you know what, Jonathan? Trump went through all the hell of the lawsuits and Stormy Daniels and so on. So it will not affect him at all, whatever they
no, it won't. It won't.
No.
The Russians, the Russian KGB, Soviet KGB once tried to blackmail, I think it was Sukarno. That's right, Emperor Sukarno. Yeah. They tried blackmailing him by showing him they had sent Russian women to basically have sex with Sukarno, and they had pictures of him doing that while he was in Moscow. They showed him the pictures, and what Sukarno did, he says, "Oh, can I have pictures? Can I have copies to send them to my people? My people will be so proud of me."
Exactly.
He called their bluff. He's told them, publish and be damned. Go ahead. I don't care what you publish. I cannot be embarrassed. He cannot be embarrassed by that.
Now, so if that's the only thing what Russia thought of controlling Trump with some questionable pictures or so on,
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Actually, it could alienate Russians from Trump's point of view, because they are using despicable means of influence the U.S. president. It's just
and President Trump has seen and experienced enough of these over the past year and several years, as a matter of fact, to last him more than a lifetime. So he's not going to be impressed by that. The only means of leverage which the Russians perceive they have, as I pointed out numerous times previously, is their nuclear missile arsenal.
But U.S. also has some arsenal too.
Yes, but even more important than the fact that both sides have a nuclear arsenal, what Russia, as I pointed out before, what the Russian military and political leadership fear more than anything else, even though they won't directly admit it, they fear the potential of American technology to neutralize the one thing that makes Russia a great power, their nuclear missile arsenal. And the United States has shown evidence through their Patriot system that yes, we do have the means to neutralize your missile arsenal. And with the existence of a Space Force and the potential for Elon Musk to basically help create an upgraded U.S. Space Force with a space fleet, with starships armed with laser weapons which could easily shoot down nuclear missiles in their boost phase on their way up. So if the United States moves in that direction to establish that, to neutralize the nuclear missile arsenals of Russia, it will, by extension, of course, neutralize the nuclear missile arsenals of China, North Korea, and certainly Iran, if it ever gets around to developing a nuclear. Although Iran, for its part, Israel could neutralize Iran's nuclear missile arsenal with its Iron Dome system, along with its other supplementary ballistic missile defense systems. But the creation of what I propose as WISDOM, the Worldwide Strategic Defense Matrix, if the United States moves in that direction, which it could well do based on the cost-cutting measures of by elimination of excess of government waste, cutting spending on totally unnecessary projects, the United States certainly has enough potential to create enough wealth and enough surpluses to not only gain control over its own financial destiny, but also to execute what I call a strategy of asymmetric response to neutralize the main strengths of your opponents with your own technological advances.
I'm wondering why Iran wouldn't make a deal with U.S. or all Western powers that for one payment of, say, I figured out $30 billion, Iran will not develop nuclear arms for next 150 years. Maybe they will bargain about $30 billion, maybe down to $15 billion, but still, that they have, I think, 60 million people there. So, so $15 billion will create X number of dollars for each person.
But again, Sasha, once a worldwide strategic defense matrix is created, that question, it's settled for good. It's neutralized for.
So Iran has to hurry up and do it before U.S. builds something. Actually, speaking about Elon Musk, you know that his life project is to get people to Mars. What he is thinking is that sooner or later there will be nuclear war in the Earth, so they will survive on Mars, right?
Well, there's a problem there. Elon Musk has apparently, for whatever reason, not completely thought through the strategic problem and the logistical problems and the human engineering problems involved with sending people to Mars. He claims that he wants to, with his Starship, the existing design of a Starship, it's supposed to be designed to send 100 colonists to Mars.
Yes.
to start off a colony. Well, there's a problem there. He is going to have a great deal of difficulty finding 100 prospective colonists with enough of a collective death wish to climb into a starship that is not much bigger than an airliner, a chemically powered starship, Sasha, that will take 6 to 7 months to get to Mars. If you want to simulate what's going to happen, what the problems that could happen, he could take a mock-up starship, put it here on Earth, with all the simulated supplies that you would have, put 100 people in it, seal them up.
Wait a second, Jonathan, I was thinking about something. Remember the Dr. Strangelove? So this 100 people have to be 10 men and 90 women to reproduce X number of people all the time and actually grow this colony.
There would be a lot of moral, ethical implications and so forth for a colony. Plus, if you're going to hedge your bets and give that colony a chance of surviving you have to have the logistics system in place. You have to first have starships on Mars, robot ships essentially sent there with sufficient loaded with supplies.
Absolutely.
You would have to have a minimum of 3. In the concept that I would describe, you would have 3 starships loaded with supplies on Mars in a triangle, and then the starship with the colonists arrives there. It lands in the middle of the triangle, and then they have 3 supply ships for which to start building, sustaining their colony. Also, then you have to have a constant series of ships going to Mars to do that. And in this system, really speed is essential. You have to get there fast. That is why a thermal nuclear propulsion system, which is under development, would be necessary to upgrade the starships so that instead of taking 6 months to get to Mars, it takes maybe 2 months to get to Mars. That's an improvement. It's an improvement, but optimally, what the main goal needs to be is development fusion-powered, a fusion-powered starship, which would enable you to get. They say that you could get to Mars in about a week with that kind of power.
Yeah.
And then a Martian colony is, at least in theory, sustainable. But you don't send people to Mars to stay there. You would send people to, Americans especially would want to go to Mars, spend enough time there to get some good work done, be paid a bonus when they return from Mars. So they could be celebrities, they could teach other people. You basically develop a space industry from that. That's how you make it sustainable. They have to be able to come back if they want to.
There will be a lot of new industries around this project. For example, I'm pretty sure there will be offices which will sell real estate on Mars. Because,
theoretically, yes.
Yeah, well, it has happened when Americans sent first people to the moon. There was one office in Argentina. They did tremendously well. They were selling real estate on the other side of the moon. And those were much cheaper than on the visible side of the moon. They were making very, very good money. The only thing is they couldn't guarantee how to secure its debt, and also it was very difficult to arrange mortgages.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So but the potential, once you develop nuclear fusion power as your ultimate source of energy, that opens up, as I pointed out previously, tremendous opportunities for building wealth. As every time that humanity has found a new source of energy, it has created much more wealth for all of humanity. So fusion power is the ultimate, backed up by nuclear fission power, and to satisfy the anthropogenic climate change people who are all afraid of carbon dioxide, which they have no real need because carbon dioxide is plant food. If plants could talk, they would all be lobbying, we want more carbon dioxide. And so the current arguments of the climate change people make absolutely no sense. But still, nuclear fusion power and nuclear backed up by nuclear fission power is the ultimate and optimal long-term solution for energy. In the meantime, we have fossil fuels, and we might as well make the best use of them as we can. And that is what the current administration is planning to do. We have to worry about the short-term prospects. We have to reduce inflation, increase energy supplies, increase food supplies, basically increase the supply side of the equation so that you have lower prices. And
drill, baby, drill, right?
That's what it's all about. Drill, baby, drill has an indirect positive effect, although it will take longer. My colleague also pointed out that, yes, that will hurt the Russian effort in the longer term, but it takes time to do that by cutting the oil prices and reducing the Russians' ability to finance the war. So all of these things take time, but President Trump and his administration have to think of some really good short-term solutions that will, from Trump's perspective, drive up the cost to the Russians of continuing the war. They have to drive up that cost and make it so clear to the Russians that it is in your best interest to make a deal and stop the war. Otherwise, we're going to drive up the cost for you.
Well, what's happened in the last few days, as we discussed, Russians are not helping Trump tremendously. And Trump is a rather realistic man. And in his assessment, he will figure out that it will be, at this point, very complicated to make any deal with Russia. So what you will have to do with help of your Western partners, NATO, is to increase tremendously Ukrainian power to hit Russians hard. And then, maybe then, somebody from Trump's team, I'm not even sure that Trump himself will call to Putin, but somebody from his team will call, let's just say Patrushev, for example, and ask him, okay, so you have many more pictures left? Okay, you might as well use it. Because no time.
See how much good that does you.
Yeah.
It's going to do you about as much good as it did when you tried it against Sukarno. Trump is just going to laugh at you. And it's well known that Trump is a political counterpuncher. If you hit him, his response is to hit you back harder.
Absolutely.
A lot harder.
Okay, so there's a situation. The front is being stabilized. Ukrainians are hitting Russians here and there and in some unexpected places. Most of the times, the Russian, the Black Sea Fleet is hiding. They're not, they're scared even to show up anywhere there.
And a logical countermove on the part of NATO and the U.S. would be if they can convince, for example, if they can convince Turkey that it's
Yes,
in their interest to allow the NATO fleet, to give the NATO fleet, elements of the NATO fleet, passage into the Black Sea to help control the Black Sea on the part of the Ukrainians and suppress the Russian ability to use the Black Sea at all. That increases the pain to the Russians, and it does not put Western lives on the line. It simply asserts their dominance over the Black Sea fleet, and basically gives Ukraine a more secure means of exporting its own crops, exporting and increasing their own income. And essentially, it also further isolates the Crimea. It further isolates the Crimea and sets the stage for the Ukrainians, if they see the opportunity to do so, to launch a counteroffensive which seals off the Crimea from Russian logistical and troop reinforcement. If they seal off the Crimea so that it basically falls back into the hands of Ukraine, then that is a major operational victory for Ukraine, and again increases the pain to Russia exponentially.
yeah, that's where it all goes right now. And I'm surprised that Russians, in view of possible peace negotiations, as Trump indicated in his election campaign, they are continuous their atrocities in Ukraine and killing innocent civilians and people. And
It's not going to make it go any easier for them. It's not going to get them better terms.
they will pay dearly for that, I'm pretty sure. And in the meantime, Jonathan, thank you very much for today's program. Have a great weekend, and all our listeners. And we'll see you same place, same time on Tuesday.
Excellent. Have
Very
a great
much.
week, Russia.
Glory to Ukraine. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.